Let's take an example, Mr. Chairman, that you'll recognize immediately. Over the weekend, you appeared on Newsmax, and you boasted that you had told AT&T, a private company, that they needed to restore Newsmax to carrying DirecTV or face the consequences. To quote you verbatim, quote, "I'm very upset that DirecTV doesn't have Newsmax on there. I've been in constant communication with the leadership of AT&T and DirecTV. I've strongly encouraged them to meet with your CEO, Mr. Ruddy, to get this worked out, or else. Or else." Now, I have no opinion about whether or not AT&T should carry Newsmax. Apparently, it was purely a business decision, according to the Wall Street Journal, and I'll ask unanimous consent to introduce this editorial by the Wall Street Journal called "The Right's Wrong Attack on DirecTV over Newsmax. A commercial dispute isn't about censoring conservatives."
Without objection.
So we can submit that. There was also a letter written by 42 of our colleagues, including the chairman, directly to AT&T, demanding that they carry Newsmax. Now, and the premise of it was there was some kind of left-wing conspiracy or so on, and the Wall Street Journal completely debunked that, saying political coercion of business is as distasteful from the right as it is from the left. But if threatening official coercive pressure like this, "follow our orders or else," applied against not just private social media entities, which is what they're proposing in this bill, but against any media entity, it would transform politics in America in the meaning of the First Amendment. But if we're going to do it, let's do it. And the First Amendment says if this is going to apply to the internet, if it's going to protect Twitter, arguably, which is the conceit or pretense of this bill, it should also protect AT&T against getting coerced into making a deal it doesn't want to make and spending millions of dollars it doesn't want to spend with Newsmax. So it is hard to see why, if you actually believe this bill is improving the First Amendment, we shouldn't block all government officials, not just executive branch, but us too, legislative branch, not just with respect to the internet, but with respect to all media, from trying to force private media entities, whether it's Twitter or it's AT&T, to include a particular speaker or indeed to exclude a particular speaker. Mr. Chairman, that logic is partially echoed in your bill, which sets the policy of the Congress that employees acting in their official capacity should not promote the censorship of any lawful speech or, presumably, the compelled speech of private actors. But your amendment, in the nature of a substitute, rolls back the scope of the original bill so that the actual prohibition would only apply to online social platforms. I'd like to take it back so it applies to all forms of media content, and AT&T will get the same protection that Twitter would get putatively under this legislation. That's my amendment, and I submit it to the committee for its consideration. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes himself for 5 minutes. I feel compelled to respond to that. What I encouraged was for Newsmax, AT&T, and DirecTV to work it out, or else there's going to be a big backlash among Americans against AT&T and DirecTV. If we could have them in for a hearing, I would have already had them in for a hearing.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if you yield for a second, the letter that you signed on January 2023 said Congress intends to conduct extensive oversight on the extent to which House Democrats and officials in federal offices colluded with private companies to limit, restrict, and circumvent First Amendment rights, implying that that's what they had done. These investigations will not be limited to social media companies.
Well, we've been looking into that. That's correct, because there's a concern about censorship. That's why we have this bill.